Wenatchee Valley Community Transitions Program. And we are excited to have you join us for our last Meet the Pros of the year. We have David Kazemba here from Overcast Law, and he is going to be talking about ABLE savings plans and special needs trusts. You guys will see microphones on your tables. Each microphone has a little button that you need to push, and the light needs to turn green so that everybody online can hear you. Once you're done speaking, if you would then push the button again so the light turns red, so that then the people online can't hear everything that you're saying if you're not wanting to be heard. David's going to go ahead and go through his slides, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers at the end. And then this is going to be streamed on the YouTube channel, the Wenatchee School District YouTube channel. And if you miss something tonight, you can go back and watch it anytime you want to, because it will always be there. So thank you, and we're glad you're here.
Thank you all for having me. I'm here to talk about some opportunities that are available to our kiddos with some special needs, and it's getting much easier to put things away for them for their benefits than it has been in the past. A couple things real quick right off the bat. I'm an attorney, but today I'm not giving legal advice. Today I'm giving information. If you have a legal question, legal questions usually involve sensitive facts. We're living in YouTube infamousy, so please be aware that whatever you ask will be on the internet. So just be aware if there's some question, I will be available after the fact if it's sensitive in nature, but I'm here to give you kind of information and direct you guys to a couple opportunities that are out there for everyone. So. Couldn't be an attorney without giving a disclaimer. The information is not intended to constitute legal advice, and it's for information only. I'm also an individual, and my individual views might be my own. I also don't speak for the school district and any views else. So this is my gift to you. If we have questions, I'm hopefully we'll get through some exciting things and get to have some fun. Okay, so I'm going to start with the ABLE program, and the easiest way to talk about the ABLE program is to show you the website. So let's just go ahead and go to the website. So this is the Washington State ABLE Program's website. This is where you'll find a lot of the information. In fact, a lot of the information on my slides came from this place right here. This is an opportunity for folks to have a plan for their kiddos who are on special needs, who are on Medicaid, who have means-tested programs. And it's a nice way to put it into a plan that can be used as a savings account, or it can be used as an investment vehicle. So up at the top, there's a couple things I want to highlight for you. First, how it works. Go ahead and click that link. And this will walk you through how to open an account. And we'll go over some of these details in a little bit, but I want you to be able to just kind of see where some of these items are. So if you have questions, or if you want to go to a particular link after we're done talking, you're at least going to be 90% of the way there. Okay. And then next we're going to go to eligibility, and I'm going to be talking about this specifically, but that will give you some more information about eligibility. And then the other one that I want to point out is the frequently asked questions over in the far right. And that will have a lot of Q&As. I will try to cover some of the questions that might come up. Invariably, there has been a question already asked, and it's going to be on the website as well. So again, just to give you some more opportunity, maybe you missed what I said, maybe you had a question that didn't get answered, it might be here for you as well. So excellent. I think we'll head right back to the slides. Okay, so the point of the ABLE, it came from the Achieving a Better Life Expectancy Act. It was a federal act, and it was adopted by all the states. The goal was to make it simpler than all the bells and whistles we need to go through with special needs trust. The whole point is to give them a better quality of life, get them to actually, instead of what I call riding the Social Security wave with SSI, being able to put money away, and that grows up to a certain amount, and then you have money that's available for that person's needs. So eligibility, this fairly strict on what they do, but anybody who has a disability or blindness that developed before the age of 26, and you must be a U.S. citizen or legal resident. Most of these states have their own separate ABLE. So if you're Washington, you're going to use Washington ABLE. If you're in Arizona, you're probably going to use the Arizona ABLE. There are different ABLEs. There's different programs for this. If you have one and you move, invariably you will be able to transfer that ABLE as well. But typically you go to your state where you are the resident. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the eligibility portion? And this is a interactive. As we're going through the presentation, if you have questions, please raise your hand and again, hit your mic so everybody in the world can hear you. And then go ahead and turn your mic off when you're all done. But I would much rather you ask the questions as they come up instead of waiting at the end, because I'm familiar with what's behind me. I'm here for you guys, and I would much rather spend our time together interacting rather than just talking at you. Okay, so what does a disability mean? So generally, if there is anything where you have deemed by the Social Security Administration that you are disabled, that's going to cover it. Also, if you don't receive Social Security benefits, you can still have your doctor fill out the diagnosis form. So basically, disability had to come along before age of 26. That's basically your two hurdles or your hit points. Okay, so how to open an account? We saw on the website, it was fairly easy. Go to open an account. And the individual over the age of 18 can open their own, or their authorized legal representative can open one as well. And for those who have been to my other presentations, authorized legal representatives take a couple different categories. It could be a guardian, it could be a conservator, it could be a power of attorney, it could be a trusted individual. Authorized legal representative, when you fill out the form with them, they will direct and explain kind of what your authority is to make certain decisions. But authorized legal representative can come in different flavors. I've never been happy with this flow chart on the slides, but I like to show it, and I'm going to see if I can work the pointer here. There we go. Look at that. Cool. Are you your own legal guardian? Yes, no. The guardian manages. Do you manage your own money? And then you just kind of follow it down. So basically, this just gives you some of these options that we've been talking about in other presentations. Do we have a guardian? Do we have a representative payee? Supported decision-making, that is a discussion for another day, but that's also an opportunity. And then when in doubt, call for help. Okay, so the whole point of this program is to create a savings plan that grows with the individual. So if you are writing that SSI waive, you know that they can't have more than $2,000 in liquid assets. So what this does is this allows the individual to keep in this account up to $100,000 that doesn't count towards that limit. That's huge. That's a great way so in my line of work, when I deal with estates and some people say, well, I don't want to mess with anybody's benefits. Well, now here's a lovely way to do it without affecting any benefits. And that covers a lot of different things. And that is something that the individual can use for qualifying expenses, which we'll talk about in a little bit. All right, so annual contribution limit, this is tied to the annual gift tax exclusion. It has absolutely nothing to do with taxes for our purposes. Sometimes people get that part confused, What it is it's actually tied to the 529 accounts in the IRS tax code. So that's why they use this, because it's a nice, easy number that everybody understands, and it goes up just about every year for inflation. So 17,000 was last year. This year it's 18,000. It's probably going to be 19,000 next year. So it keeps kind of going up incrementally until Congress decides to change that number. Yeah, okay, a lot of words on this one. Okay, so gift contributions. Like I said, this is one thing with estate planning that's very, very important is you can gift to your individual that has special needs. You can put it in their ABLE account. What you have to keep in mind though, is you're still tied to that $18,000. So if somebody wants to put in $18,000, well, you are set for the year. If you put in 16,000, that individual can put in $2,000, as long as the math works out. And then if that doesn't work, you can always choose a different year, or maybe somebody wants to make that gift in a tax year for themselves for their estate plan, then they do that one. Where it really comes into play is when we start talking about, and I think it's the next slide here, the able to work contribution limit. So as adults, we interact with the world through our jobs. You know, most of us define our jobs through our jobs. I would like to be defined as an attorney, but also somebody who loves to go out, play in the wilderness, and take the kids on the Cub Scout troops packs. But this is how most of our kiddos are going to interact with the world. They're going to get a job coach, and they're going to be able to interact with the world, whatever their limitations are, through their employment. And we encourage this. And there's actually benefit through this for them to be able to put some of their money away towards that $18,000 limit. Huge benefit of, again, achieving a better life experience. So this is to, again, get them to interact with the world like adults do, whatever their limitations, whatever that looks like for them. Okay, qualified expenses. I said we come back to it. So qualified expenses are not limited to what you see here. Generally, when you talk about qualified expenses, you're talking about a vendor to vendor relationship. So basically you use your ABLE and you're going to pay for whatever that needs. The limitations when we talk about special needs trusts, and the limitations when we talk about ABLE accounts, is that individual has those funds, but what are those funds being used for? Are they being used for qualified expenses, which are okay, or are they being used to contribute to other expenses which may or may not cause either tax penalties when we're talking about an ABLE account, or may cause a problem when we talk about special needs trusts? So basically living expenses, education, housing, travel, anything that individual needs, it's to supplement their needs, but it's not to benefit other people, not the individual. And it's not supposed to be money handed over so they can go spend it on something else. There's other things for that. You can create other funds. Social Security generally with the SSI likes to see at least $50 for that. That is going to be based on whatever budget you set up as a rep payee. But this is to supplement their needs. Okay, so I said qualifying expenses may cause a tax penalty and the like. Anytime you're talking about 529s and the IRS tax code, it's always nice to get your local friendly tax professional to help with any of those questions. If you're keeping track of your expenses, keeping track of your receipts, and if you are an authorized legal representative, I would encourage all of you to be keeping track of records and receipts. It's generally not a huge deal, especially since we saw that list is so extensive. Okay. We're going to take a little break for ABLE. We'll come back for questions and the like, but that is kind of a 20,000-foot view overview. Does anybody have any questions on some ABLE accounts, or do we want to go back to special needs trust and then circle back to specific detailed ABLE and trust questions at the end? Go ahead.
Get there. Okay. Okay. So if a person is on SSI and moves to Social Security, does that change anything on the ABLE account?
It doesn't, is it already been established?
SSA has been doing SSI for years.
And as the deposit going in, is the SSA, the SSI going into it?
Yes.
Okay. It should not, but when you
shouldn't say
get
not-
that, what's that?
Not going into the ABLE account yet. It's just going into his checking. We're up against the $2,000 all the time.
Then I don't see any change to that. The only thing I might see as a change is if you have to reset up the account because it's a different stream from there. But talk to Social Security. They're great about those questions.
And then the other question is, I think that might be the same question is with an ABLE account, however much money is in there at the person's person's demise, what happens to that?
Yeah. So ABLE accounts, special needs trusts, all those are subject to what we call Medicaid payback. And how it works with ABLE, and this is probably the more cutting edge. So this is a newer portion of law. It's been around for 2014 is when it was established. Washington was the first to jump on board and say, hey, this sounds good, but we're the last to get their act together with actually having the plan. But when you set it up, you set up who your persons are, and this is an asset of the beneficiary. So whoever individual open it, it is their account. And at their death, it is something that could be an asset to the estate. And then some of these folks may be able to have wills, some of them may not have wills. So there's a little angle there, but generally Medicaid has a right to get paid back for whatever they put into it. So that's why all of these programs, the goal is to use these funds for the individual's lifetime, because at the end, whatever's left over invariably is going to go paid back to the state for what they put into it, and then the balance can be directed to the estate. Okay. All right, special needs trust. You guys are going to be experts by the end of the night. We got one more?
How do you access the ABLE account once you have it? Is it like a debit card? Is it linked to a bank account? How do you get the money out?
How do you get the money out?
Mhm.
Couple different ways to get the money out. So once you set it up, has anybody set up the it's not the GET program anymore, but the program for college education as well? Same portal, same thing. You log in, and it's your ability to see it. And when you set it up, you're going to set it up as either a savings plan or save it up as kind of a investment model. So that money is available, and there's forms. There's also a portion on there. We kind of jumped over it when we went to the website, but there's prepaid cards or whatever to load up as well. So there's a couple different ways that you can do it. It can be an account that just grows and then just sits there until you need it, pull it out for something, or it can be something that it's on a card that they can use as well. Whatever you guys want to set up when you set up the account. Any other questions? These are good. Okay, special needs trusts. So special needs trusts is what we had prior to ABLE. And there's a couple different flavors when it comes to special needs. And I do all sorts of trust work. So if I get to legalese, if I need to break it down, if I need to bring it a different way, just let me know. But essentially, there are two types of special needs trusts. There are support and there's supplemental trust. And most people, when they're talking about a special needs trust, are actually talking about a supplemental needs trust. And they're designed to transfer legal title to somebody and to manage those assets for the benefit of a beneficiary. The best analogy that I've come up with is, imagine this glass of water is my property, and I want to put this glass and water in trust. So then I'd probably give it to the folks here right in the front and say, hey, please take care of this, manage this for me. And then I tell them, okay, who can drink from this glass of water? Me, anybody else I say can vent for it. And then what happens if the glass breaks? What happens if the glass spills? And then what happens when the glass is empty and we need to fill it back up? So all of those things are all in the trust. And the point of it is I'm giving my rights to make decisions for what happens to this glass of water to the person in charge. So they're the trustee. The glass of water is the trust, the corpus, and then the person who creates the trust is called the trustor or the grantor. The beneficiary is the one receiving the benefit of that. So they're the ones who get to drink from the glass of water. All right, I'm going to cover support just real quick because these are actually becoming, in my world, a little more popular because one of the things we like to do in trust work is we like to draft flexibility into it. And sometimes we think, well, this person's going to go to college, I'm going to get a 529. Well, now I'm just stuck with a 529 account. There's ways to roll it over now. But we try to think of flexibility. So some people may or may not need the means tested benefits. And the reason for that is to lock it up so you get all these benefits of the special supplemental needs trust. The support trust says, I'm going to put this money away and it's designed to support the individual. So that's a little more loosey-goosey as far as the rules in, but we put the check in there that we're planning on this because this individual we perceive is going to need care needs or is going to be on a means tested program. So those are some things that we can draft into flexibility when we start talking about actual trust planning. Supplemental needs trusts. So I said we have to play by the rules to get the special benefits of this. So these are supplemental. It's an irrevocable trust. And what that means is that once you do that, can't change your mind. Again, being an attorney that does trust work, I can still change it. But it usually takes a court action. People don't like to go to court with me. I don't know why. But they have no access to the special needs trust and they can't say, I want my money out, and they can't say, I want you to make this disbursement. The trustee has independent discretion to decide what needs to happen. It's a vendor-to-vendor transaction. So if that individual needs new shoes, I mean, that's a pretty easy transaction. The individual needs a car. I mean, that one's little more involved. And then likely it's for schooling. So they would write the check to the financial institution, not to the individual, but to the institution of higher learning. So they can get the tuition for that. So a couple different ways, but generally the benefit is that they never touch the money. It goes straight to where it needs to go. Okay. First party, third party. So when we talk about special needs trust, it is important to figure out whose money it is. And there's two different types, and the two different types have different rules associated with them. The first party trust is one that's funded with assets that belong to the beneficiary. So if I was to set up a trust for my benefit, that would be a first party because I'm the one with the money and I'm setting it up. With our kiddos, where this comes into play sometimes is with inheritances. So if it's an inheritance, it's already an expectation, that's already an asset of theirs. The other way that it traditionally comes up is with these settlement trusts. So accidents, and then there's individuals where those monies were there for their benefit. These traditionally were set up by a court. Now the rules have become a little more flexible, but those are all examples of first party trust. A third party trust is funded with assets that don't belong to that individual. So that is if I decided to set up a special needs trust for somebody else and it was my money. So if I seeded the trust, if I put my money in, it's still a third party trust. So that's the distinction, and you'll understand why that matters in just a little bit. So 5 things that happen to every single trust. And anytime somebody mentions trust, you're going to surprise them. You're going to win at Trivial Pursuit. You're going to know the 5 things that happen to every single trust. First thing is we have to create the trust. Trust is essentially just a legal document. We have to have tax recognition of the trust. So a irrevocable trust is a separate tax-paying entity. You have to fund the trust. So if you have the piece of paper and you have the tax ID, nothing happens until you put money into it. And not funding a trust is a really, really expensive piece of paper. Then you have to administer the trust. So the trust has terms. Going back to the analogy of the glass of water, we have to figure out who gets access to the glass of water. And then we have distributions. So usually the benefit of trust is we want to grow assets and we want to distribute those assets from the trust. If you don't distribute assets from the trust, then somebody comes along down the road and says this trust is not working because it's not pushing it out. So those are things that have to happen with every single trust. Okay, now law gobbledygook. All right, so first party trusts. First party trusts, the most important thing that we have is this part right here. So we just talked about the ABLE accounts. Medicaid has a right to be paid what they put into it. Same with the first party trust. So the goal is to spend assets for the benefits lifetime, because at the end of the road, make sure that burial and all that is taken care of, but they arguably will have a claim for what they paid into the individual. Other things that have to be there for a first party special needs trust. This used to be a lot smaller. It used to be typically the court and the legal guardian could do it. Now they've expanded it. The special needs trust must be irrevocable. So again, that's that part where they get the benefit of having this special trust. So if they have the ability to direct where that money goes, then they can't get the benefit here. All right, third party trusts. Same thing. Even if it's parents' money, even if it's grandparents' money, trustee has to give absolute discretion not to make distributions, and the beneficiary has no right to change the trust. The third party trust I'm going to give you may not have to have a Medicaid payback. And that's what I'll leave you with. It gets a lot more complicated than that, but that's what I'm going to leave you with tonight. The reason being is because it is not the beneficiary's assets. It is your assets or whoever created it. That's why it's a little bit differently. The other type of trust that I like to provide or give people information for pooled trusts. So there's a couple different recognized trusts under federal law for the benefit of a special needs trusts. Pooled trusts are a trust that's organized and managed by a nonprofit organization. So the first pooled trust was set up by the ARC in 1950, and it's codified. It's federal law that they like these things because it's managed by a nonprofit who is designated by the feds and the states to manage people's money. It's nice that the ARC was the first one to create a pooled special needs trust. And in fact, the endowment trust here in Washington is actually run by our ARC. So definitely people who have been doing this for quite some time and know what the rules are. Why would I want to do a pooled trust? When we talk about a trust, generally that means you come to somebody like me to set it up, which costs money. Then you also have to administer the trust. And again, that typically requires somebody like me, which costs money. If you make a disbursement that affects that individual's benefits, you may or may not have breached your duty to that individual and your duty to the trust to keep things kind of protected. So the pool trusts are preferable. So instead of you in the driver's seat, you're giving it to somebody who knows the rules. With any of these thus, with any trust, you definitely want to probably talk to somebody like me, because most of these are irrevocable. Irrevocable means you can't change your mind. But pooled trusts are a more cost-effective way to share the expenses of administration among other folks. So couple rules of the road with distributions from a special needs trust. If money is paid directly to individual, it is unearned income. Food and shelter, anybody who's dealt with the SSI wagon knows that food and shelter, if they're not paying rent, it's in kind. So all of those things are something you keep in mind when you are in charge of a trust and making disbursements. Payment of beneficiaries bill directly to the supplier is not income. It's that vendor to vendor transaction. So the individual never sees the funds. All right, so that really, really long list we had in the beginning when we talked about ABLE, guess what? It's here again. And it is very, very broad. This is including but not limited to. So it's not an exhaustive list. Basically, if it's for the individual's benefit, it's allowed. If it is something that is provided for their means tested program or something else where they can say, this is my money, that's where the rub happens. Let's go ahead and go to the Developmental Disabilities Endowment Trust website. Run. Okay. So before ABLE, this was where we went. And it's went through a couple name changes, but now it's referred to as a Developmental Disabilities Endowment Trust Fund. So again, run by the ARC and a lot of information on their website. So again, if you forget what I talked about, or if you have further information, there may be a question already on their website. So let's go ahead and click on the About link. Okay. You'll see ARC Washington State. And then the other check on this one is, scroll down just a little bit further. We have the Investment Board, and the Department of Commerce is the one who's actually governing and provides support to the governing board. So as far as, again, knowing what the rules are, these folks know what they're doing. When I first started giving these presentations and giving these talks, I actually called the hotline and just spoke to one of the individuals there for a while, and she was so kind, and she wanted to tell me, and I still say it, if you have any questions, give them a call. They want to hear from you. And even so, like, some of the rules may have changed, they're willing to answer your questions. Again, with any trust, you want to talk to an attorney, and even one of the boxes you have to check when you set one up is that I've had the opportunity to talk to somebody about this, but they are very, very helpful. Both the ABLE and the endowment trust, they want to hear from you. Go ahead and click on Overview. Okay. Let's go to, so there's some information, some endorsements. Let's go to types of accounts. Okay. Okay, and then this is why I gave you the crash course in different types of trusts, because they're going to use this language here in the website, so you'll know which trust you're looking for. There's the, let me use my pointer here. Give me all these tools and I forget I have them. All right, so this is the self-settled, and then we have the third party up here as well. Okay, and then go ahead and scroll down a little further. Okay, and look, there's that long list again. So a lot of different opportunities to do this, and how this works for most of these, especially the endowment, it's a form. So you go ahead and set it up, you seed it, you fund it. We'll talk about some of the other bells and whistles, and then you will request a withdrawal for X, Y, or Z. And as long as it fits within those bullets, or something that they can say this is not directly benefiting the individual, it's going to be a go. Let's scroll back up to the top and let's go to forms. Okay. This is probably my absolute favorite part of this. Is I've worked in other states helping people with setting some of these things up, and Washington does a fantastic job of putting all the information, all the forms on their website. So you don't have to have me do it. You can look at yourself and figure this out. Still talk to somebody, of course, but you'll be able to figure out, okay, which trust do I want? Which instructions do I need? And all the information is available there for you. Let's go ahead and scroll up to the top. Let's click on what to expect. Okay. So this will give you some information as far as what happens after you've opened the account, and then some information on contributions. And then right below that, there should be another thing for disbursements. There we go. Okay. And then the other item that you're going to want to pay attention to is the quarterly statements. Yeah. There is information about what's going on, and you want to make sure that your trustee is managing the assets effectively. So you'll be able to check and see what it is. The other item is updating information in the trust. So we know life is not like, goodness, life is not like this. It bounces up and down. People come in and out of our lives, and then sometimes, people also pass away. So there's opportunities to change who the information is. A lot of this stuff is going to be set up when you set up the account. So try to think, globally. But, we all know that life happens. So typically the things that will not change, though, the beneficiary will not change. And then the primary donor, the one putting the money in, will probably not change. But sometimes the disposition plan might change. Sometimes the legal representative may change. Throwing things. Let's go to frequently asked questions now. Okay, so again, what did David say? It's probably on the website, or if you want to look at the website and have further questions, that's not legal advice. Tonight's not legal advice, but we could certainly talk about other things that may come up in there. Okay. All right, let's go back to the slides now. Okay, so of all the pooled trusts that are out there, I do like the endowment trust because there is a match. So if you're making qualified participating contributions to it, you get a match from the trust, and that helps count towards the administrative costs that are associated with the account. And then again, we just went to the website. How do I qualify? And then there is some difference in eligibility for this. This is one that we do have to pay attention to. So the individual must meet the state definition of developmental disabilities, must reside, and must be under the age of 65. So the other one, 26, this one has to be receiving services from the Division of Developmental Disabilities. So it used to be a little more loosey-goosey. Last one that I touched and called them on it, it was, if you are receiving these services, then we recognize and you have the ability to use this. Oh my goodness, there's more legal gobbledygook. Developmental disability is, again, most people can drive a truck through that. But it's basically a disability that is recognized by the Social Security Administration and is exposed to last indefinitely. I like this one. Contact the disabilities to request a letter saying the person who the trust is eligible to receive DD services. They like, instead of this letter now, they do like to see what benefits they're already receiving. But this one has been offered as an opportunity as well. The initial enrollment fee is $600. The vesting requirement is $25 a month, and the annual management fee is $75 or 1% of the account balance. One thing I did forget to do is double check this to see if there was any changes right before I changed the annual gifting. I did not double check on this one. So I think this is accurate, but do check the website just to make sure that I'm not way off course. This is important. So why does the endowment trust encourage you to talk to an attorney? because it's irrevocable. It's a big decision. This is something that you're planning for the individual's lifetime, and sometimes even planning for what happens after their lifetime. So it's a big decision, and you want to be able to make a right decision, because once you're in there, once you're in the program, you're in the program. So very important to, if you have questions, reach out to the endowment trust, reach out to the ABLE, and then talk to an attorney, because you're going to have to check the box saying that you've had an opportunity to talk to one anyway. That's it. So a lot in a short amount of time. So I'm here for you guys. What questions do we have?
One of those things. So if someone moves out of the state, what happens to the trust?
There is the availability of some rollovers, but that may be, again, that's part of the long-term plan, like what's going to happen, because the trust is still going to be in existence until somebody says that it's not applicable. But you generally want to set it up in their state of residence, because part of the request is whether they're receiving the developmental disabilities, and that's going to be by state by state. So invariably, if it's set up, it's probably good enough to, if it's already in play, but you probably want to look to your residents and figure out if you need to roll over at a later point in time, or wait until you're settled in a place before you apply. Good question. Okay, any others? That's me.
That will be short and sweet.
Yep.
Thank you so much, David.
And I will be available after if anybody has any other questions off to the side here. Thank you for having me again, and appreciate you all taking the time this evening to be here. Thank you.